Hey, what's up, guys? It's Kane1 from Hijo de Ramon Music Library, and we're back with another sample breakdown. Today, we'll be breaking down a sample off of my new pack, Novela 2, which is a collection of samples inspired by music found in 80s and 90s telenovelas from Latin America. This is just the type of stuff I grew up on. My parents used to watch like a bunch of telenovelas, and the music kind of stuck with me and is a huge inspiration in my sound. For this sample, it's kind of my take on a Spanish love ballad. It's not the complete song, but just kind of like picking moments in a regular song that would be worth sampling. So I kind of went with kind of like an intro, a chorus type of vibe, and then somewhat of like an outro where it's super minimal, and just a few variations. For this sample, I started out with the keys. Like a lot of my samples, it starts with me kind of jamming out on the piano for a little bit, whether it be a plugin or my Korg SV2. I just kind of jam out, play a bunch of different stuff, chords, melody lines, trying to find something that sparks an idea. But before I jump into the breakdown, let's play the sample so you get an idea of what we're going to be doing. All right, so that gives you an idea of the sample. If you want to hear the full thing, go ahead and pick up the pack. But yeah, let's start with the keys because that's where this whole idea kind of started. For the keys, I used, I've been obsessed lately with the UAD Ravel or Ravel. I don't know how it's pronounced really. I think Ravel. Their piano plugin. It's currently replaced all my contact libraries in Keyscape that I used to use. I just love the tones. I love the way it sounds. And I'll solo that out so you get an idea of what I was working with. So yeah. The keys sound really clean, realistic to me at least. I didn't really change much to the preset. I think there's not a whole lot that you can change in the plugin. Oh man, this thing is bugging. Let's try that again. Anyways, there would be something here. But as you can see, volume, tone, dynamics, reverse. I shot up the tone a little bit. And then dynamic, I brought it down a little bit. And then mics, I went more to the close mic, and that's pretty much all I did, and just raised the volume, and then threw on some Valhalla plate with these settings right here. EQ, kind of brighten it up, take out some of that low end, and I was left with a pretty decent piano sound. Then to kind of stack it, I used Keyscape, and I ended up going with the electric piano, or the vintage digital piano, the MKS-20, the Piano 1 Gospel. I use this sound a lot for like doing like 80s type of stuff. And I use it for this as more of just like a secondary layer to just kind of beef up the original piano, but to add in some more like digital and like synth sound to it. So it was a good mixture of like that natural and synthesizer, like digital piano. And I'll play that for you now just to give you an idea what that sounds like stacked. And I had that fade in the beginning, so you can't really hear it, but when the vocals really drop, you can hear them stacked. And I'll play that again without it so you get an idea of what it sounds like without those digital keys. And for that, the UAD Studio D chorus and 80s spaces, which is one of my favorite reverb plugins for capturing like that 80s reverb sound. There's a ton of cool presets in here and it sounds 80s, which is amazing. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the keys. I did throw in a texture from one of my texture packs, and it's just random noise. Shout out to Diego, one of the sound designers from that pack that I released. He made all these textures himself. He recorded it from his own life and his experiences, and he just threw it together in a pack. And a lot of these sounds are really, really nice for just background noise. So I kind of had that groove going with the piano and the noise, and then I decided to add a bass. And for bass, I don't really play bass live, so I either use Contact, Rickenbacker, or I go for the Trillion. And Trillion for me is a little bit better than the Contact stuff because of all the different articulations and like all like the key switches that you can use. And there's a ton more presets, a lot more flexibility with shaping your bass sound. For example, this one I made it solo and I added a tiny bit of glide, but then I also messed a little bit with the envelopes here just to kind of ease up on the attack. So it wasn't really clicky in the beginning. I kind of messed with the attack to make it more of like a softer playback when you hit the key. But anyways, for the bass, this is what it sounds like. Pretty straightforward. I try not to get too crazy with the bass. I used to, but I found that it was kind of distracting, especially when people are trying to sample stuff and people are throwing 808s, or if they try to filter out the bass. I try not to make the bass too complicated. Maybe in certain parts I'll add in like some more sauce, but sometimes some single hits and really basic bass lines can go a long way, especially with keeping the sample usable and flippable for producers. Next thing I added was drums and Addictive Drums. Oops, there we go. Addictive Drums is always my go-to when I don't have a live drummer. The Modern Soul and R&B preset bank are one of the default ones. Amazing drums, super crispy. And yeah, for that I just kind of kept it simple for the rhythm in the beginning and kind of added some fills to highlight more of the stuff happening within the keys. So I'll play that for you. We'll start in the middle. And for the drums, all this is clicked in or played on the keys. Just ultimate flexibility. I can nudge stuff super early or late to kind of add more of like a realistic vibe to the drum playing. And with Addictive Drums, the drum sounds super realistic, especially with the velocity. So you can get away with clicking stuff in or playing it on the MIDI keyboard and having it sound almost realistic and almost legit. I still don't think it replaces a real drummer, but when all you have is the plugin, I feel like that's all you need. So yeah, the next thing I added was strings. Or actually, I'm going to backtrack a little bit to the bass because I forgot to mention the processing. So for the bass, I keep the drums or the sound super default. but I do add a little bit of EQ, but taking out some high end, boosting a little bit of like that lower mid area. And then I love using the VC2A from Native Instruments to capture some of that dynamics and kind of flatten it out a little bit. And I love this compressor because it's just two knobs. It is a classic remake of like a vintage compressor, and I think the original ones would have like the two knobs, and it would just control like I think your threshold and your gain. So for here, it's called peak, I think. But yeah, I just kind of like turn it until I see the meter moving a little bit, and I feel like it's kind of like shooting down a little bit of that volume, and I bring it back up a tiny bit with the gain. But I like what it does. It kind of like makes everything sound really warm and not so dynamic, but it still kind of captures like the character of the bass, which I really like. But yeah, let's go back to the strings, and I'll play those for you. So for strings, there's only two major ones or three major libraries that I use. First one being Contact Session Strings Pro. I'm not using it in this specific sample, but just to mention that that is one that I do use a lot. But for this specific sample, I use the Bohemian Violin, which is my current favorite, and I love using it in the trio performer because it makes it sound like a trio of violins. Really great sound. And then it's not present in this project because I did bounce it out, but was the or the Spitfire Abbey Road 2 library. It's a massive sample library by Spitfire that captures like the sound of the Abbey Road studio strings. Really great library, but you need a PC that can handle the power that it requires to run. I literally bought a new PC just to be able to run plugins similar to that. And since updating the PC, I've been able to run like 10 of those at a time. So if you're thinking about doing an upgrade on your PC, you should definitely do it. But for these strings, Abbey Road 2 and Bohemian Violin. And for the string processing, pretty basic. Just use the default patches, Valhalla Vintage Verb for one, and then the Ref Plate by Arteria for the other. Great plate plugin. I love this plugin right here. But yeah, actually, I'll play everything so far. You get an idea what those strings sound like within the mix. So yeah, just to kind of add like that tension and like that dramatic sound, strings were great. Um, Also, as of late, I've been using a lot of pedals. My current pedal setup is the Big Sky, Chase Bliss Mood, and Chase Bliss Therme, and then the Shallow Water to run and process stuff coming out of FL Studio and running it back in. And those four pedals have been great for just processing like synthesizer sounds or anything that I want to kind of add like some more movement. And this is a good example of that. I had the Moog and I wanted to add a little bit of like synth texture to the intro. And this is where I recorded it originally. So it was like that lead sound. I think I did record it with some delay or reverb in the beginning, so it was printed inside of that original recording. But then I ran that through the pedals, and I recorded that back in uh, just to add those effects. And I can't remember exactly what I did because a lot of that tweaking is done on the spot, and I don't really save presets or like take pictures of anything. I just kind of tweak knobs until something sounds right, and then I just move on. But this is what I ended up recording. Which obviously just adds, outer space to your sound. So stacked together, it sounds like this. Just like that background noise, that background texture, so that way it's not just like a dry synth. You want some movement. Um, the next part for the intro were the vocals, and the vocals I came up with a lyric that was in Spanish that I felt would kind of capture the vibe of an intro to, a Spanish song, and this is what I went with. That was the original take. I sang it really soft. But then, I had more layers. And then a bunch more. For processing, EQ, VC2A to capture again like those dynamics, to try to flatten everything out, but without losing the too much of the dynamics, just capturing those peaks to make everything sound the same volume. And then the Valhalla room with these settings right here. I mean, without it, this is what it sounds like. Ya no, ya no, ya no, ya no. Cuánto el dolor. You can kind of see it sounds really loud, and to me, the vocals were just kind of all over the place. So with the compressor and everything, it just kind of like made everything sound like unified. Ya no, ya no, ya no, ya no. Cuánto el dolor. So yeah. And then that's pretty much it for the intro. And then what happens next is basically a more aggressive version of the intro before it drops into what would be kind of like a bridge or like a verse. So to really make this second section really stand out, I sang the same vocal, but with a more aggressive tone. So I'll play that for you now, so you get an idea of what I'm talking about. Ya no, ya no, ya no, ya no, aguanto el dolor. Ya no, ya no, ya no, ya no, aguanto el dolor. So there, I'm just repeating that vocal line, but adding a little bit of harmonies, more of an aggressive tone, obviously a lot louder. So the first one was kind of like an intro, soft approach to the vocal, and I get super aggressive just to make it sound more angry and more like in your face, I guess. Maybe not angry, but more emotional. And for processing is the exact same processing as the intro, just treated a little bit different with the compressor. I think I introduced a little bit more of like that peak reduction because I am a little louder. Let's see. Yeah, so there's that. And then I added another synthesizer sound ran through the pedals, which is this sound here. Let's turn it on. And then I added the Rhodes. And then processing for that was EQ, take out the low end, because the Rhodes naturally has like this low end to the keys that adds a little bit of mud. So I always like to strip that out. Valhalla Room, those settings there. And then Reels. Everyone loves Reels. I love Reels. Stardust from Cherry Audio, probably my favorite Space Echo emulation. With these settings here. The chorus on this Stardust is really nice too. Sometimes I'll turn everything off and just use the chorus. Really, really nice. And then yeah, that's everything there. And I'll play this second section with everything that I just mentioned. And then this is kind of where I had left it initially. And then I decided to revisit it um, when I thought about maybe adding a guitar. And I didn't want to do anything crazy because I'm still learning, I'm still practicing guitar, but I wanted to add the guitar at some level just to kind of like add that layer. And I ended up adding this guitar to follow the bass hits. So I'll play that for you. And as far as guitar playing, I keep it simple, and I felt like that simple layer added so much to this section that it was kind of crazy. So I'll play that for you now with the guitar. And that sound and that tone is so like within that era, and that whole sound, like the way that it's kind of nasally and kind of fuzzy. That's found in a ton of like these 80s Spanish love ballads, especially when the song kind of builds up. You'll hear those tones. So I was kind of going for that. And to highlight it, you can see I was just kind of like boosting a little bit of like those highs in specific areas to really capture like that kind of like that mosquito fuzz vibe. And for processing, I'm using like the Stratocaster to go into directly into the box, and I ran it through the Corey Wong archetype. I think that's what it's called, or the archetype Corey Wong. And there's like a lead strat preset that is crazy, and that's what I use for that. And I don't think I changed any presets. I might have like shot up the input a little bit, but I just ran it through that, add some EQ, and I just called it a day. So we're going to like the middle of the sample. It goes into this whole different vibe, not different vibe, but like a different option for sampling where it's not as aggressive as the previous section. Kind of gets a little bit more angelic and melodic with the keys kind of changing up. So, and to kind of separate things, I did add a separate kind of like choir kind of vibe, and I'll play the choir stack here. I felt like going from that aggressive vocal to this choir was just like a nice switch up and kind of like a breath of fresh air to give you just like a different variation of that same sample. For processing for that choir sound or that choir stack, I think I had went in through the compressor while recording, and I got rid of it because it got printed into the final recording. But EQ to take out low end, and stereo shaper to push everything kind of wide to make it sound just a little bit bigger. Um, and then I did add, let's see, I did add a lead guitar right here. I'll play that for you. And you can hear me kind of like playing with like rubbing my fingers on those strings to get like that squeaking sound just to add texture in the sample. I feel like again, it's just where I'm just looking for character. I'm looking for like different things than just a simple guitar playing the notes. I want it to sound a little bit of like a human element because there was a human playing it. For the guitar stack though, I basically recorded it twice, but I had one at the original pitch initially, and then I pitched it up. But then I ended up, instead of keeping it at the original pitch, I pitched it up again to make it really high pitched. And that's why you get kind of like that pitched up sound. I felt like that just sounded cool. The next thing I added for this section here was another lead sound. And that's the Prophet 6 patch that I had made that I had never used before. It's kind of like a nasally, kind of in your face lead sound, kind of high pitched, and I just love the way that it sounded. And I felt like it worked in the sample, and I just used that throughout like this ending section here, and the drums switch up here as well, and so do the keys. I'll play this section in full with the strings that I had mentioned in the beginning of the breakdown with the choir. So this is it right here. So you kind of see what I did there. The choir kind of like leads you into like a soft little pocket right here. But then the guitar brings you into like an aggressive like hit where once you have the drums in there, it makes the beat sound crazy. So So it's the same thing kind of repeated here, but I played it separately to kind of give each moment that it happens a unique tone and character because I'm not just copy and pasting the same thing over. I'm playing it again to give it a variation. So it sounds like someone's playing it live. So again, kind of tapping into like that era, that time, copy and pasting things wasn't really an option. They had to play that shit live. So then the same thing kind of happens here, but more stuff happens with the strings and some different stuff happens with the synthesizer. So I'll play that for you here. That middle section for me would be like the moment of like the best sampling moment for me at least. There's a lot of different ways you can flip it. The intro could be used for like an intro for the beat or the whole sample itself for depending on how you want to flip it. But the whole point was just to kind of give people options with the composition while capturing a specific sound from that era. To end it off, I did do more of a different piano take at the end, but I was kind of stuck for a while because I didn't know what else to add. So I decided to just kind of leave the piano as is and just add a bass line and have that kind of close out the sample. And I'll play that for you now. So again, just kind of not overthinking it. I didn't want to just add more shit just for the sake of adding shit. I decided to leave it completely open because I feel like there was already enough layers happening in the rest of the sample. Maybe an open part would be kind of nice to have. But yeah, as far as this sample, that's pretty much it. It's about 17 tracks in total. This is a bunch of like extra stuff that I didn't really use, just channels for recording, stuff that didn't work out. Just I like to keep everything, but I kind of push it off to the side. Everything in the first part is stuff that I ended up keeping. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown. I'm a little rusty, it's been a while, so if there's something that I missed or something that you wanted to know more specifically, feel free to comment below and ask. I'll do my best to answer any questions you guys have. And again, a reminder, if you guys haven't picked up Novela 2, the link is in the bio or the link is in the description. Please pick it up if you guys are interested in getting these samples. And I got more packs on the way. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.